The federal election result gave new meaning to the phrase Independence Day, with the crossbenchers dictating major parliamentary reforms as a condition of their support for the Gillard government. And that's inspired Queensland's crossbenchers to push for changes to the way the House sits here. But as Francene Norton discovered, Queensland's already ahead of the game.
Doing the group hug?
This public display of affection was a rare sign of harmony on the grounds of federal parliament. But politics is a funny business, especially when independent MPs have the balance of power.
It does have some benefits because, as we've seen in the federal parliament, it causes people to talk to each other and to come to agreements rather than always be confrontational. But there are many disadvantages as well, in particular in relation to having a government that can be effective in implementing its program.
The extraordinary alliance is going to mean big changes to the way Parliament operates. And while Queensland's crossbenchers don't have the same influence, they've been inspired by the reforms proposed in Canberra. LNP turned independent MP Rob Messenger wants to see Parliament sit on Fridays. And colleague Aidan McLindon has his own 8-point plan.
1. In question time, government members are restricted from asking the government questions. 2. That answers for questions without notice be limited to 2 minutes. 3. That 15 questions be allocated for the opposition to the government.
But their calls are falling on deaf ears.
We've seen a bit of grandstanding from the independents here in the Parliament following the federal election, and unfortunately we see that from independents in the Queensland Parliament all the time. Their only role is to grandstand for their own electorates. They have no responsibility to the broader picture.
But Queensland independents have already set the pace with parliamentary reforms. Minority government in 1998 forced some big changes on George Street.
In 98 we went to shorter questions, shorter answers to questions, so there's a lot of good can come out of it. I don't think it's a bad thing that it means government has got to consult more. That's what we found in 98, and the winners out of that are the people.
The Queensland Parliament already acknowledges the traditional owners of the land before each sitting day, flies the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags outside Parliament and allows private members' bills.
There was almost a chance that Rob Oakeshott became Speaker in the federal Parliament. Would an independent work here in Queensland?
It could do. The issue becomes this, that an independent by their very nature needs to be involved in the political process in a high-profile way so that they're showing their electorate their independence. Now, oftentimes that means posing a question to the executive, proposing a private member's bill, speaking on legislation. Now, all of those things assume an activist role, whereas traditionally the Speaker has a detached role.
What are some of the issues or problems that you've seen in the parliamentary process during your time as Speaker?
It's always an issue to make sure that the rights of members are defended, and on occasions I've had to do that on members' behalf and do that quite readily. The other challenge is to make sure that the person I called upon to speak is able to be heard. Now, they cede that right somewhat if they start to challenge the other side or goad the other side. Now, I don't expect either side to sit there mute while they're under attack from the Speaker I've called upon to speak.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. That is clearly within the realms of the motion.
The opposition's Leader of the House, Jeff Seeney, is also fond of a good old-fashioned debate.
I think we should have a real debate once a week on a contemporary issue, and I think it should be a debate where people speak their mind rather than read speeches. I think it's laziness that has crept into the Queensland Parliament.
But for Mr Seeney, the thorny issue of relevance still needs to be addressed.
In the past, we've had speakers here who have allowed ministers to use question time to address issues that had absolutely nothing to do with the question that it was asked, and quite ridiculously so, on the grounds that the minister could answer the question any way they liked. Now, I believe a minister can answer the question any way they like, but they must address the question.
A lot has changed over the years, but the Leader of the House says it's made the Queensland Parliament more robust than many others around the world.
When I came into this Parliament, the speeches were 40 minutes. Now they're 20 minutes, and we're looking at reducing them maybe to 15 or 10 minutes. The difference is, and once upon a time, you only had a few people wanting to speak on a bill, but now it seems you have, half the chamber wanting to speak on every piece of legislation, and clearly you cannot fit that into the time frame. So something's got to give, and perhaps it's going to be a reduction in the length of the debate.
And Judy Spence is planning more reform to the parliamentary committee system. A review which finishes in December may recommend that legislation is sent straight to committees rather than the House.
Many governments in the past have rushed through legislation when more time would have brought some better consideration of it and perhaps a different point of view.
And opposition or independent members may be allowed to chair committees.
Well, it would be a first in Australia, but I think it's time. I mean, most of these committees actually bring down unanimous reports. There's not necessarily, people work very collaboratively in committees, and I don't think we should be frightened about letting the opposition chair some committees.
This year, Queensland marks 150 years of continual parliamentary democracy. But even if it ain't broke, there's still a little room to fix it.
See, I'd rather have warfare by words than warfare by guns. We've got a great system. Let's hang on to it. But where we've got to improve it, let's do it.